Hello again, Mrs. Shapiro here. Today we're going to look at equations that have decimals in them and learn how to get rid of the decimals. Make the problem a little easier to work with. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at how many places are after the decimal. What's the most number of places after the decimal in the problem? If there's 1, that's tenths, we're going to do the opposite and multiply by 10. If there's 2 places after the decimal, that's hundredths, we're going to multiply by 100. So let's see how this looks. If we look here, the most we have is 2 places after the decimal. So we have to multiply everything here by 100, which moves each decimal place over 2 places. Each decimal over 2 places. So when we multiply here by 100, it's going to scoot the decimal over 2 places, and we're going to have 180k. And then when we multiply this by 100, it's going to move it over 2 places. So we have 120. Move it over 2 places, we have a 20. Move it over 2 places, we have a 14. Sorry, made a little mistake there. Okay. Probably helps to have your calculator while you're doing these. But let's go. We've got K's here. We have 180K and a 20K. So they're like terms. Sorry, my mistake. We have 120 and a 20. So we have 180K. Nothing changes with that. And then 120 and 20 is 140. And that equals 14. Okay. Now we need to get the 180K by itself. So we're going to subtract 140 from both sides. These cancel. We get 180K equals negative 136. We're going to divide both sides by 180. Here's where your calculator comes in handy. And I'm going to let you finish this problem. I don't have my calculator here. I'm using it as my recorder. I'm using it for the video. So you'll have to finish that and figure out what K equals. Okay. All right, let's look at the next problem. If we look, there's 1 place, 1 place, 1 place after the decimal point. So here, we're just going to multiply everything by 10, and it's going to scoot every decimal point over 1 place. Now, let's remember we have a negative 1x here. So 10 times negative 1x is negative 10x. Multiply by 10 here, it scoots the decimal over. So we get a 4 minus, it scoots the decimal over, we get a 16, scoots the decimal over 1, we get an 18. In front of the equal sign, we can combine like terms. So 4 and a negative 16 is a negative 12. Okay, we want to get x by itself, so we add a 12 to both sides. Okay, divide by negative 10, and we get x equals negative 3. That one I could do without a calculator. All right, let's look at the next one. Oops, sorry, there we go. All right, if we look again, there's 2 places after the decimal point. So that's hundredths. So we're going to multiply by 100. And again, it's going to scoot every decimal point over 2 places. So this one goes over 2 places, so it's behind the 21. So we have a negative 21. Over 2 places, so we have 180p. Over 2 places, so look, when we have a negative 1.1, when we scoot it over 2 places, the decimal goes there, we fill in a 0. So we have negative 110. Okay, we want the 180 by itself. the p's by itself, so we'll add 110 to both sides. Okay, and that gives us 2089, I think. Again, I'm doing this on the fly. Equals 180p. Divide both sides by 180. And again, you're going to have to use your calculator to finish that up. All right, 2 places after the decimal is the most, so we have to multiply by 100, so every decimal scoots over 2 places. So we'll have 160x, 100 times 1 is 100. Scoot this over 2 places, we get negative 628. Move this over 2 places, and we get 120x. We have x's on both sides, so we need to get all our x's together. But now we don't have any decimals to deal with, so it's made the problem a little easier to navigate, even though the numbers seem a little large. So we get 280x, plus 100 equals negative 628. Subtract 100. So we have 280 equals negative 728. Sorry, I'm positive 280x. And again, divide by 280. I'll let you figure that out on your calculator. Okay. We'll look at 2 more problems. But we're doing the exact same thing every time. The number of places after the decimal, the most is 2, so we're multiplying by 100. Scoots every decimal over 2 places. 100 times n, 100n. Scoot that over, and we get a 30. Scoot these decimal over 2 places, and we get negative 170n. Scoot this one over 2 places, we get negative 159. Okay. We have variables on both sides, so we need to get them all on one side. So let's add 170n to both sides. So we have 270n plus 30 cancels equals negative 159. Now our variables on one side. Let's solve for n. So we'll subtract a 30. That gives us 270n equals negative 189. Divide by 270. You figure that out using your calculator. All right. Last one. 2 places after the decimal's the most. So again, we're multiplying by 100, which scoots every decimal 2 places. So this scoots over 2 places, we get 10. When you have 2.2 and it scoots over 2 places, we get 220b. Scoots over 2 places, we get 426. Scoots over 2 places, we get 40b. Get all our variables on one side, now that we don't have any decimals left to deal with. And we have 10 plus 180b equals 426. You know what's going to happen here. You're going to have to figure it out on your calculator. We have 180b equals 416. And b equals whatever you get using your calculator.